Welcome to Yuvavani. We are exploring youth on the front lines of rescue operations. And joining us today are Keerthan from Charlie's Animal Rescue Center and Subiksha from ARRC Wildlife Rescue. Hi Keerthan, hi Subiksha. Could you tell us more about your journey to becoming a rescue operator?
Hello guys, good morning and it's very nice to be here. So my journey started in 2018 from Charlie's Animal Rescue Center. I started as a educator and then slowly got promoted as the shelter manager right now. So our daily routine happens to be like, we have two helpline numbers which receives roughly anywhere between 100 to 150 calls on a day. And, we pick up injured, infected and abandoned street animals. And we run a hospital which has pretty much all the equipments that is necessary for all the trauma cases that are reported in Bangalore. So we have 9 ambulances that go around the city to pick up injured, infected and abandoned street animals.
Hi, good morning.
Good
My
morning.
name is Subiksha and I'm the lead rehabilitator at ARC Wildlife Rescue. And while my core function is rehabilitation, I also oversee rescue operations and I'm actively involved in the community outreach aspect of it.
I'm very curious about knowing what got you guys interested in saving strays and wildlife, because this is a very unusual stream of occupation, we can say.
So basically, I grew up in a family where we had a lot of dogs and cattle at home. And at a point, our family had close to almost 21, 22 dogs. So I always wanted to be a veterinarian. But unfortunately, I was very weak in mathematics. I was always curious and very keen in rescuing animals. And that's why I somehow happened to stumble upon my seniors who were already doing rescues, wildlife rescue, urban wildlife rescues. And that's when I was behind their back wanting to do something, wanted to learn what it takes to be a rescuer. And that's how the journey started. And after meeting them, I understood, it is very, very easy to work with animals. It's very difficult to work with people.
We're going to get to that. And what about you, Subiksha?
So I've always been curious and passionate about animals. So I was the kid you would find running around behind the butterflies and the spiders in the backyard. And it started off with, rescuing a stray pup. I actually was fostering 7 orphan pups. One of them actually had a paralyzed leg and I adopted her. And that's when I realized all the challenges that these animals face and how difficult it is to actually help them. I went on to do my master's in wildlife sciences and I attended a seminar that was given by our director, Ms. Jayanti Kallam, and that opened my eyes to the possibilities that are there in terms of how you can get actively involved in making that change. What started off as an internship turned into one of the most meaningful aspects of my life.
Do you agree with him that it's easier to work with animals than with humans?
Yes, in some ways I do agree with that because most of the times animals find themselves in this situation because of our actions. So yes.
And what made you say that? Like, why is it difficult with humans than with animals?
When it's rescue that involves any kind of risk, people think it's fun. If it is a dog inside a well or a snake, the first thing people will do is want to assemble around the rescue scenario and, try to taunt us. Basically, a lot of times when we've gone for snake rescues, the first thing people will do is start hissing at you. And in a situation like that, what makes it difficult is you don't understand if it's the snake or if it's the people, and it might deviate your attention from the rescue, which should never happen.
How old were you when you did your first rescue?
Okay, so I think I was about 16 when I did my first rescue, which started off with dogs, of course, with those puppies. And, one of the main challenges that I felt was convincing my parents to let me foster those 7 puppies, right? Because at that point, you're not financially independent. You're dependent on your parents to support you. So I think that would be the biggest challenge that I faced at that point of time, getting the necessary support to do what you think is right.
My first rescue happened to be when I was in my 7th grade. A puppy got run over. I picked up the puppy. So at that moment, I am standing on the road holding the puppy and I'm crying. I see one guy who was passing by. He went away and he came back and asked me what happened. I said, see, this is what has happened. And I need to take this dog somewhere. The puppy somewhere. Then he said, where do you take it? Then I was like, okay, I've heard about this veterinary college in Hebbal. I think maybe we should go there. He said, okay, hop in. A random guy on the road who I have absolutely no idea who he is. I hopped onto his bike. We went to the Hebbal Veterinary College. So that was my first proper rescue, where I went to a rescue center. That was QPAM back then. And again, when I went there, they said, no, you know what? We are not going to take this puppy. Again, standing there crying. One lady walked out and she said, okay, you know what? We will take this puppy. Because I was standing there. I refused to move. I walked in. And that was like a paradise for me, dogs with 3 legs, 2 legs, hopping around. And for me, that is when I understood, okay, this is what I have to do. And that is how I channeled my animal love into doing something that is going to save more animals.
How different is stray rescue from wildlife rescue in Bangalore?
Rescuing a stray animal and rescuing a wild animal, right? They are very different things. Your approach towards it also has to be different. For example, if you're working with a dog or a cat, sometimes if the animal has been around people, right, it can understand that you're trying to help it. I've seen that happen with the dogs that I've rescued as well. But the same thing with a wild animal, that is never the case. The wild animal will do everything in its capacity to stay away from you, right? And if it's in a state that it cannot move and you're going and approaching it, it is thinking in its mind, that's it, I am done for, because a predator has got hold of me. So that is where the distinction becomes very important, because when you're working with wildlife, minimizing stress, minimizing handling, most people do not understand, the general public. They would handle a wild bird or say a squirrel, a small squirrel, the same way they would a dog. And that usually, while their intention is to help the animal, it ends up becoming counterproductive.
Domestic rescues were always very, very difficult for me, because when you go for a rescue of a dog that has a bottle stuck on its neck, it'll run for its life. It is never going to come to you, irrespective of whatever you do. You're going to have to spend at least 5 to 6 days in order to catch this dog. And sometimes, you don't end up catching them at all. Because a bottle stuck on its neck, it can't breathe, it can't eat, it can't drink. That's a horrible ending that nobody should ever have. And a lot of times, even cat rescues, which are sitting on a tree, when we approach them, cats have either fight or flight. When they can't fight, the first thing that they'll do is jump off the tree.
What is the most misunderstood animal in wildlife rescue?
I would say snakes. They are highly misunderstood. They are one of the most peaceful animals you can ever encounter. They are shy and elusive by nature. They will do everything in their capacity to stay away from people. Every snake encounter that you see happening is because the animal accidentally was there. And given the choice, given the space, the animal's first instinct's like, how do I get out of the situation? That is all that's running in the snake's mind, right? But people, when they see snakes, they don't realize that only a very, very small percentage of them are venomous. For example, in Bangalore, you find 4 venomous snakes. Out of those 4, only 2 are actually commonly found. You find the cobra and you find the viper. And each of these 2 also, right, they give you clear warning signs when you approach them. One raises the hood, the other one hisses. They're telling you, please stay away, give me the space, I'll move away. But people, first thing they do is start panicking. When panic sets in, they're not thinking very clearly, and they often end up doing things that either puts the snake at risk, or puts themselves at risk, or put the crowd around them at risk, or the rescuer at risk.
And what's harder, injured animal or hostile humans?
There have been good and bad scenarios. I'll start with the good scenarios. We take a dog that is injured from a community. You will have a mob stopping you saying that, why are you taking our dog? And we've had people who cook home-cooked meals, like kebab, chicken biryani, and bring it over to the shelter to feed these dogs, which is good. And when I say the bad scenarios, when you rescue a snake, and that too from any of your politician's house, they would ask you to wait. They'll say, Saibru banda how nodಬೇಕು. Protocols are very, very important. No matter whoever might be, even if it's our honorable CM, we don't open the bag once the snake is back. So that protocol is very, very important to save yourself and also the crowd. Because once you caught the snake, make sure that the snake is being released.
How do you manage the system, the people, the paperwork, navigate all that?
See, we work under BBMP and like the current GBA. So basically what happens is when you get calls from your local ladies or the DD and the special commissioner, basic paperwork that they expect us to do is give them a reports every month saying that, okay, these were the rescues that we do. And on top of that, we also have to make sure that, all these cases are attended to, which are sent by our government agencies.
We do work with the forest department, and we also work collaboratively with the 2 other wildlife rescue centers that are there in the city. And we have one policy: no call that comes to us regarding wildlife will go unattended. And we also have systems in place. We have an app. When you're talking about paperwork, right, we document every single case, goes into an app that is accessible to the rescuers, veterinarians, rehabilitators, and reports are made and sent across to the forest department. It doesn't matter, you can pick a small area of Bangalore, but take complete responsibility for that area. We get a lot of conflict cases. People don't want bats roosting in their AC vents. They don't want owls in their service shafts.
People, when even I thought, I'm going to be working with animals, it's going to be so much fun and I'm going to be doing a lot of exciting things. That burnout is very fast. The reason being is, imagine if I have 5 spaces at my shelter and I get 100 calls. How do I pick up only 5 out of the 100? So that's the first dilemma. And the second dilemma is when you bring an injured animal, which is very bad. When you see them and when you know that they're not going to recover and they're still wagging their tail, that breaks your heart. And rescue per se, people think that you can learn it over internet or YouTube videos. You can't. You could probably learn the protocols, but day-to-day scenarios can only be learned from somebody who has experience. Understanding, meeting community, talking to people, sharing knowledge, learning from other people, only then you can kind of mold yourself to be a rescuer.
It is important, like Keerthan said, you have put in all your effort into one animal, but when it doesn't make it, how do you recover from that? I mean, a lot of threats that our wildlife faces today, right, is indirect threats. This manja, the string that people use for kite flying, is purely recreational, is purely something we do for fun, right? So there is a ban on manja back in 2016, and again last year there was a ban that was imposed by the government of Karnataka. I would, do something to implement the ban on ground so that anybody who's found using, selling, or manufacturing this thing, some action can be taken, because so far in the past 9 years, we have rescued about 16,500 such animals from just this one problem alone. So if that one thing is taken out of the equation, I think this Bangalore would be a much safer space for our animals. And it's one of the most painful things to see, because these birds, the skies that they inhabit, that is their ground for hunting, for foraging, for moving around. We have turned that into a minefield. You don't know at what point when something will happen to them, where they will get stuck. So yeah, I'll go for the small wins. So yes, I would do something about implementing the manja ban.
This is a very important point that you made. So what is the age group that are involved?
In the last 5 years, we've seen a lot of young kids and, teenagers coming into this field wanting to make a difference. The reason being is, see, like how she said, the whole manja issue, nobody knows the intensity of it. People think, okay, they're trying to curb our, religious practices. No, it's not that. We would always use cotton thread to fly kites. We never had a concept of Chinese manja. And from 2016, if the government has not been able to implement the ban of manja, that itself is very, very sad, and that is why these young kids who are the, voice of the society right now, who are trying to go out and tell other kids to not do this. And the older crowd are trying to manage the bigger things. See, if people are wondering when is the right time to bring in a change, this is the right time. You need to understand why it is important to have animals around you. See, India as a country, we were worshipping animals. We always put our animals first, and then came everything. Our ancestors did that as because they understood the importance of the ecosystem with animals. Probably you could recreate animals that were extinct back then on AI. You don't have to do that while you have the strength to save them now. So do it.
You've been listening to Yuvavani, featuring Subhiksha and Keerthan on the front lines of animal rescue.